welcome to episode 2 of Pagan and Hazak Discuss Games.
He had to figure out that last part. He wasn't sure if we actually discussed like chips, dip, or other things you may enjoy at Mexican restaurants. So today is our second episode for you guys. This will be the episode where we kind of get into, I guess you'd call it the nitty gritty, kind of the point. Hope you guys enjoyed the first one.
I hope we get into the rhythm, the groove.
What?
Well, for doing the real episodes instead of just the introductory one, get into the groove.
This is gonna happen a lot. Pagan's gonna say some stuff that doesn't make any sense to me, and I'm gonna stare at him, but you won't see that part. Plus, he has no rhythm, so I don't know what he's talking about. He lacks that capability.
I've got tons of rhythm.
Mm-hmm. So, moving right along, I guess we'll just bring up our first topic today. This is near and dear to both of us, but it's definitely in Pagan's wheelhouse. So I'll let him start the introduction.
All right, we are discussing the Rareware game released on the Nintendo 64, Jet Force Gemini.
Woo-woo.
A third-person shooter detailing the adventures of a twin. They were some sort of space organization, like a space cop, or maybe
like space military. They're like the UN for space, except they had guns and used them.
Yeah, and you played twins and their dog, and
named Lupus.
Yep, he was named Juno, and she was named Vela. The first thing that I remember about this game was the control screen, because this was a N64.
Oh boy.
So it was a bit awkward playing because you couldn't really aim, so you kind of auto aimed, or you just relied on, or you used the awkward D-pad, the battering part, to move around while you could strafe. It was not the best.
Control scheme was pretty bad.
Yeah, but that's mostly due to the bad controller design. I don't know what they were thinking.
Well, actually, the funny thing about the whole controller design that I found really interesting, I just thought about this while you were talking about it, because you had to control your character with the only joystick part to the controller. There was no other joystick part. A lot of you guys are used to there being multiple joystick parts to a video game. So that was actually really pushed forward and made really intuitive. But Ape Escape, we won't get into that right now. But so it made it really hard for you to kind of move your camera around. And in this video game that really ran high on being able to move your camera around, that was really, really important. I also just got a notification that our battery is about to die. So I'm going to let Pagan continue talking. I'm going to go get a cable so we don't just shut off.
To continue discussing the games, in case I don't know how popular this game was. I know that I loved the crap out of it. It was a Rareware game on the N64. I know that a lot of people might not have a big respect for that company. They're kind of shit nowadays, but back then
they were the shit.
They were kicking it.
Silence Kitty.
They were amazing. They came out with tons of really awesome games, and now I think we're charging. We have battery. Oh god, that's going to be really loud.
He didn't think about that. He was like, oh, our mic is right there. I'll slam my hands and create large amounts of vibrations anyway.
Yeah, my apologies to anyone who is now deaf, but you can't hear me anyway, so...
Well, damn. What the hell? We are sorry to whoever is like interpreting this podcast via sign language to their friends or family members.
If you're doing that, you are amazing.
You are
and
cool.
Thank you so much
My cat is
for
sniffing away.
loving this podcast so much that you're willing to translate it to your friends to convince them to listen to us, because that is dedication to the cause. You're like #1 fans. Oh, Kitty got the squirt bottle.
Yeah, they were fighting. Anyway,
so I did some retrospective research last night on this game, and a point. So a lot of this is going to be half memory, and a lot of it is going to be what I looked at last night. Did you do much research on it?
I did a good bit. Most of it's already knocked up inside of my head. So when I started a good bit, I was like, I know this. So
yeah. The game starts with you coming to a star system or something like that, and a bug army is slaughtering little tribals. They were called tribals, but they were like bear people.
So in order to give you a bit of a perspective so you can feel really bad for these tribals, so these bugs look like gigantic ants, like blue and red and purple ants. They were huge. And the tribals look like little koala babies. And they have big ass eyes. Like you could see the emotion in those eyes. And they would just slaughter them, like their heads just pop off.
Oh yeah, that was I'm pretty certain this game was teen, but it was hilarious.
The amount of gore.
How gory it was. Like you collected enemy heads to unlock special things in the game. Remember that?
Yeah.
And I kind of remember that there was some amount of gore function, like arms could pop off.
Yep. Dismemberment happened.
There was like green ichor from the bugs when you killed them. You could also decapitate them. There was a shuriken, which was great for decapitation.
You
I
could use a
remember that.
flamethrower.
Yeah,
set them on fire, World War II style.
And all those things could also happen to the tribals. You could shoot the tribals, which, yeah, we'll get into that later. So at the beginning, you see like these stormtrooper bugs blasting away at tribals, and they the three heroes try to stop them, but something goes fucky and they get separated. And you start off the game with Juno, the brother, and play through a few levels. Then you go to the sister and play through a few levels, and then you go to the dog and you play through a few levels. Best character ever. The dog was amazing. He could fly.
He had little jet feeties. Like he was like, well, I'm specialized dog, and I'm going to lose my little boots. And I was like, oh, that's a cute little dog. He was a tank. Kaboom! It was cute. I liked it.
He did turn into a fucking tank. That was amazing. And the then you reunited, and after that point, you could use.
It feels so good. I'm sorry.
And you could. Well, it's a good thing we're not on YouTube, or Content ID would have just fucked us over.
Ooh. Shit. Yeah, I'd be happy for that.
I think I just reminded James of something here. Oh, oops. Well, that's my first time doing it.
You know my name now.
After that, you could use any character, and you could explore the levels a lot more openly. And there was a good bit of Metroidvania style getting power-ups to go back and further explore things and all that sort of stuff. I will admit I never actually beat this game because it was so fucking impossible. Near the end boss of the game was locked. You had to get goddamn spaceship, and you had to get all the goddamn spaceship parts. Well, 2 of these spaceship parts were fucking impossible. One of them required doing a 100% completion on a mini game mission that was really freaking annoying, not to mention obscure as all fucking hell. And the other one required rescuing every single tribal, because those little bear guys, you could rescue them on the levels, and you had to rescue all 238 of them in the game to get that final spaceship part so you could go to the final boss.
Could you say that it was no tribe left behind?
I'm gonna punch you.
I made a political joke.
You made a political comment. Joke remains to be seen. There were a bunch of guns in that game, though, weren't there?
Oh, yeah. So, okay. From my perspective of the game, actually, DJ summed it up pretty good. Like, Pagan summed it up really well, and that is the game. Like, you went around, Metroidvania style, you shot some people. Now, each of them had their own little unique abilities. Did you know it could walk on hot surfaces?
Fucking lava.
Yeah. His sister, she actually had the ability to swim underwater indefinitely. And the dog
could fly.
He could fly, so he was coolest. So for me, this game has different.
I just want to hold off for a second there because we have walk on lava, pretty cool. Swim underwater. I don't even remember if the indefinite part was there. I guess, but like.
No, that was like her thing. She could go underwater.
Really, it was just she could go underwater.
Apparently, in military training school, swimming is a special class.
But the dog could fucking fly. Like, that was really cool.
Flight was always cool in video games back then. It still is because it's rarely ever done correctly. And just having a dog being able to use a little vehicle boost was cool. So for me, this game is a little bit different. I really look at this game from a perspective of 2 different things. One, I fucking hated it at the time, and I'll tell you that in a minute. And looking at it retrospectively,
there's a
4th character we haven't mentioned yet, and that is because I'm saving it for myself. So the game, and before we get to the 4th character, the game also holds for me different types of things retrospectively. So looking at this game, I see a lot of contributions from games previously to it, and then games coming after it. So this game was made in 1999, and before it's released, if you look at the characters, they're all in blue. One of them has a big gun, the guy, and they have a lot of gun changings and stuff like that. And then there's also the aspect of having a dog that helps you. And for some of you people who are fans of this, just like me, you may see the similarities between Mega Man and them. So you got Lupus, the robotic dog, which is much like Rush, the transformation aspects, and he really helps you, glide up and do stuff like that. The many different weapon aspects, which is shared in a lot of games with projectile weaponry like that, is also somewhat similar to Mega Man, but different because, these are just equips and upgrades. And then, of course, the coloration and the fact that it's a platforming type aspect.
Yeah, it is. I don't think we mentioned this. It was a really colorful game most of the time.
Very vibrant.
Granted, a lot of games were like that back before people discovered that
gray and brown are the only colors on Earth, apparently.
But it was
you shoot the brown. We'll get into that later.
Ooh. Now I'm completely sidetracked. Yeah, it was very colorful. It was bright. I mean, there was that zombie level. There were other levels that were like there were some levels that were downright creepy. I mean, that zombie one was creepy.
Yeah, the game was very atmospheric.
But shooter. At least for most of the game, it was bright, and I mean, there was a thing you could do to turn on rainbow blood from everybody. Yeah, and it made it was Technicolor.
It's called cheat codes. You guys may not know what those are either. The younger audiences, you guys may know these things as DLC. You pay for them now.
I guess that's another thing, I guess, to bring up is like we're talking about all the different weapons, but you could access these weapons at any time. You just had all the weapons. Once you first got the weapon, then you had it, and you didn't have to put it down for another weapon. You could carry all your weapons. And
it didn't use like a cartridge system for its weapons. Like you just shot bullets indefinitely, and then you just ran out of bullets. What I do like about this game system, this mini weapons thing, also translates to another game that we may talk about later on, and that's Ratchet and Clank. So
now it's important to remember that, like, I know that nowadays it seems as if a character can only hold like 2-3 weapons at a time, but that was an invention. That was something that a specific game did, which we'll talk about, and it did, for better and worse, change a lot of how things are done. But most games, especially shooters, had tons of weapons, tons of cool fucking weird weapons, and you could always access them at any point.
Yeah, and that was kind of the whole aspect of it. It was like, you want to have a real fun run and gun experience, just blow shit up all the time. That's what they were aiming for. And on a note, a lot of people make jokes about Rare and stuff, but Rare was the shit in the day. Like, they knew what they were doing. They gave you, like we said, vibrant, beautiful games with enriching backstory. Like, these games weren't just haphazardly put together, and they looked fun. They were fun games. Now, something else that's really important to me that I feel led to some of this inspiration for this really particular popular game is that Jet Force Gemini, I think, really helped contribute towards Halo. If you ever look at Jet Force Gemini and you compare it to Halo, it's a little bit similar. Yeah, Master Chief is big and green and quote-unquote macho, but we have the Jet Force team who are really futuristic warriors, just like them, that carry large weapons. And then if you look at the insects, the enemy race, they resemble a lot of Covenant creatures. They look like it. Like, if you play these games side by side and you kind of get past the graphical differences, you are essentially playing like the same game in some ways. Of course, there are different things about it, but I think it had slight nods. It made a few nods to games that happened in the past, and it helped, I feel, inspire a lot of games in the future. And this is all speculation, but when I'm looking at this is kind of what I feel is coming around to it.
I'm not so certain about that exactly. I'm thinking that they probably took from... It's fairly obvious that Halo took a lot from Starship Troopers.
Oh, and Halo or Jet Force Gemini?
Both.
Okay, yeah. Because I was going to be like, Jet Force Gemini is extremely Starship Troopers.
Halo definitely took from Starship Troopers, and it took from a lot of things.
Yeah.
And Jet Force Gemini took from a lot of the same stock. So when we're saying that there's similarities between the games, I don't think it's exactly that you could say that Halo traced from...
Yes, no. And that's true. When I say that there's similarities, there's just nods and pieces of it. Games are going to borrow good aspects from other games. I don't think that's a problem. But yeah, like what Pagan said, I think they are not directly correlated. They cannot be translated towards each other, but if you put these games next to each other, you'll be like, oh yeah, I can see that.
But here's a thing where this game really did do something different, and which hasn't been brought up until the Wii U even, a asymmetric experience for the players. Now, Hazak, why don't you tell everyone your experience with asymmetric play?
So, there's a fourth character in this game because they wanted the game to have co-op aspects. So there's a battle system, like you can fight each other. That's great. That's cool. I'm not a very competitive gamer, so that's not my thing. So when we were younger, little kiddos that we were, Pagan would invite me over to play games. We generally play games that he enjoyed, and I enjoyed them too. We play like Dynasty Warriors, stuff like that. Well, we found out that you can play Jet Force Gemini as friends. Friends, they call it. So there's 3 badass fucking characters. But there's a 4th fucker. Lonely fucker. Got no friends.
I'd say he has 3 friends.
Oh yeah, they fuck them. They weren't friends. No friend. If you get this game, or if you were a child and you played this game, and you play this character with your so-called friends, they're not your friends. They are enemies of the state. They were bad people. I'm talking about Floyd. Floyd was the first iPad in space. If you ever look at Floyd, he looks like a fucking tablet. Like he is a floating tablet with a helicopter head.
Yeah.
All this space age technology, and this motherfucker stays afloat by copter.
Yeah, he does kind of look like maybe a PlayStation controller with a helicopter coming out of the top.
He looks exactly like a PlayStation controller. You know what? Now I'm thinking about this really hard because look at this. Nintendo fucking hated PlayStation. So how else do you make people fucking hate PlayStation 2? You make them play as a floating fucking controller from the PlayStation. Now,
and while the main characters got a wide variety of options in their weapons.
Floyd had 2 options of his life. Floyd could fly and he could shoot pew pew lasers.
Except they couldn't really fly. He just hovered around the primary character. So
you couldn't even have your own freedom.
So while Hazak regales you with emotional tales of Floyd, I'm going to tell you about the mechanics. The primary character walked around using the analog stick or the D-pad and could vaguely aim with the R and the C buttons. But the Floyd character had 0 actual movement capability. The Floyd character could just aim with the thumbstick. This meant that they could provide a wonderful assistance to the primary player, but there was the problem that the asymmetric play did not provide the best experience for the second player.
Darby got no socks. Darby served Potter all day and didn't do anything. Like you just sit there and if your friend didn't want you to shoot the tribals, you probably shouldn't have shot the tribals. And you could, but
Oh yeah, I was going to say that there is a revenge of the Floyd player. We said that you had to collect the tribals to beat the game, not just to feel like a good person for rescuing these little fat-headed pandas, but
koalas don't even look like pandas, but okay.
Whatever. They were dumb, they were cute, and they were helpless. That sounds more like a panda than a koala.
That's true.
We have a strong anti-panda bias in this podcast.
Yeah.
But the Floyd player, any player could shoot the tribal if they wanted to be a cruel jackass. And like I said, you could even decapitate them if you were especially skilled. So whenever I would try to collect the tribals to actually beat the fucking game, my friends would shoot the tribals and prevent me from progressing.
Now, I didn't. I was not revenge-filled. I just sat there like a loyal fucking robot and just hovered. And like this experience for me is... this is probably the worst way to make a person experience a co-op game or work together with a person in a game to me. Because you're taking away...
Especially when you're 10.
Especially when you're 10. Like, your friend is playing the cool superhero character, and you're not even a sidekick, dude. You are the Batarang. You're the Batmobile. You're the utility belt. And you're not even the full utility belt. You're like a pocket on the utility belt.
You might. I would say that you're better than Jimmy Olsen, at least.
Well, everyone's better than Jimmy Olsen. The whole thing is just that, like, when you're playing a game, you too want to be part of this experience. You're playing a fighting game. Sure, you may not be as good as your friend, but you can still play with the characters that have that same power-filled environment. If you're playing a shooter, the weapons are available to you as well, even if you're on different sides. Usually they make these games so that you can, like, have a different aspect that your friend is not having. Every game that you're playing with the person nowadays really aims towards that aspect. And if there's any failing that I find in Jet Force Gemini, it was that connection for a multiplayer experience that they just clearly overshadowed, and possibly because of the story.
Yeah, I honestly don't know where the whole idea for Floyd came from, where they got the idea for that mechanic. Like, that was so different from, like, anything at the time, anything that I've really seen elsewhere. It probably was not the greatest mechanic, and that might be a good reason for why it wasn't there, but it was really weird.
It was very strange, and in its defense, Jet Force allows you to play Floyd on small little mini missions, but it was essentially you going down a tube,
having to dodge some things and shoot others.
It was a rail shooter. They let you play a rail shooter in a game that wasn't a rail shooter, and that was it. That was the aspect of the game for the Floyd players anyway. I felt that was really lacking on some kind of level. Now, that being said, moving forward with it, it does not tarnish the kind of feel that Jet Force still has. I feel it was an underrated game. It's appreciated by gamers and people, certain gamers anyway, and it was definitely given decent ratings. Most ratings were either of B level or higher as far as games are concerned. But people don't know it. People don't know.
Yeah, it's one of the cult classic games that still has the cult in there. Like, you can't really say that System Shock is a cult classic anymore when everyone fucking shouts it off the rooftops.
Yeah.
But then again, has anyone actually played System Shock 2? I doubt it.
Exactly.
Not that I blame them. That fucker's hard. But yeah, Jet Force is an actual cult classic. Not many people had heard of it back then. Not many people have heard of it now. And honestly, if anything, that's what we're trying to fix.
Yeah.
Like, we would love to fucking fix that.
Yeah, we're definitely trying to bring up a lot of games, particularly like when it comes to Jet Force. These games just aren't appreciated. Not that these games don't fit into the time scheme. Not that these games are either too hard, too challenging, or Mr. Back in My Day shit like that. It's a good game, and it has a lot of qualities that could be explored and appreciated. Jet Force is definitely one of those games that can be explored from a technical aspect, not so much for, like you say, deep, enriching, grossing story. But the way that this game promotes a different way of utilizing your environments, different aspects of it, different viewpoints while you're playing this video game. And other games have done it before it, but Jet Force is in its own little circle. Like, there aren't other games like Jet Force Gemini that just produce the same kind of feel that you get from it. I find it very interesting that Jet Force has a lot of similarities with a lot of games that I mentioned before, and these games became really popular. Now, this could be that Jet Force was too ahead of its time, or brought up in a time period that it didn't work out very well with, just like the Dreamcast. These are we're looking at certain game aspects that just kind of change up stuff. One in particular game that I think is underappreciated, it kind of falls into the line of Jet Force Gemini.
Oh boy, here we go. That thing's gonna get its own episode.
We're talking about Shimu?
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about the other one.
I don't know what the other one is.
Oh, come on. You know what the other one is.
There's a lot.
Don't play coy with me.
There's a lot. And so, yeah, for Jet Force, when you're looking at this game, it's taking in a lot of different perspectives from other video games. So you're getting your multiple guns, you're getting your platforming, you're getting your gratuitous violence, and these are all things being thrown into a game that's rated teen. Which I should actually bring up that this game was rated teen, like Pagan said earlier, and you had decapitations, dismemberments, blood, gore everywhere. Now,
most of it was green.
Yeah, most of it
and
was
ants.
green and ants. But this is still something that we were exposing kids to at a very early age. Now,
low poly models.
Yeah, low poly models. Yeah, and I'm not going to necessarily say like it's good or bad. I just really do find this a really interesting aspect, society-wise, that there's a lot of games nowadays that are rated mature, and it's just like, oh, Home Dog got shot in the arm, and I could just see the like bullet hole, and there's blood coming out, but it's rated M. While cute little panda bears are getting their heads popped off by floating PlayStation controllers, and like that's cool. So yeah, like Jet Force is an interesting take. It isn't what I would call the most groundbreaking of video games, but it's definitely one of the most obscure video games out there.
Yeah, we've got a list of games that we wanted to talk about, and we weren't certain what to go for the first one, but we both decided that going with a obscure old game that both of us love to bits and pieces. Hazak may say what he wants about Floyd, but when I let him borrow this game, I saw a certain name on that cartridge.
Oh yeah, so I had a dirty habit of when I borrow video games, I write my name on all of them.
Except that you didn't do that for the other games that I lent you. Just Jet Force.
Just good games. Those were mine. Bad games were his.
One of these days we'll tell you about a deal in which I got a shit game.
And I reign supreme. I robbed that fool blind. He'll never see it again. Is there any more you want to like talk about with Jet Force, or are we gonna move on to our later segment, wrap this one up?
Yeah, I feel as if I'm not certain if there's much more to discuss with Jet Force. Part of it is just that it is, it's all a lot of this has been memory.
Right.
Like we played that game a long ass time ago.
Yeah, in 1999, that would put me at 10.
Yep. 5th grade.
Woo-hoo. But yeah, okay, so Jet Force, that sums it up as a whole. Now, before we end this episode, this is something I plan on doing at the end of every episode. I'm kind of springing this up on Pagan as well.
Oh dear.
And there's two things. So there's one thing we actually did discuss. It's going to be called Back in My Day. So Back in My Day is a little fun segment. We are old gamers. So we're going to make some ridiculous analogy about back in our day, this and this happened.
Do you think we should be explicit when we say we're old? By the way,
oh yeah, okay.
I'm actually going to bring up a completely off the topic, mostly off the topic, how old I am. Last night I was working and I did something wrong, and I think I pulled a muscle in my back for the first time in my life, and it was so painful. I felt more old in that moment than I have at any other time. When I was, I just did something wrong, and my back hurt the fuck out of me for doing it, and it was just a complete betrayal of my body.
So
I am old, and I don't want to be.
So we're pretty old, and when we say we're pretty old, in comparison, we're not old at all. We're still in our 20s. I'm 27.
26.
And so, like, we aren't old, but we're old. And just on that note of how Pagan had that back pain, I once walked down some steps and the other day, and I was like, my knees, and I was like, the hell, my knees? Like, I run a lot. Maybe that may be why. But like, you know, it's just yeah, we're old. But moving ahead of that, so we're going to do a segment talking about back in my day, these games and that. But then also, I figured what we do is have a kind of selection of to give back to our audience. Like, hey, this is a game that you should look into or try to play if you have the time. We pick one, we explain it briefly, and then just let them go with it. You know.
Okay. Sure.
So, I guess we'll.
Yeah, he sprung that completely up on me.
Yeah, he like made a weird face. So okay. A back in my day thing for me.
Back in my day,
I played my Sega so much that I actually like fucked up the power button. So
you've never told me this.
Okay, so this is new. So like so I played my Sega to death.
Evidently.
And so I fucked up the power button so much that you could tell the difference between the reset button and the power button. The power button definitely had a lock-in position, and the reset button had a little like jiggly position. It was more free. It just sprung back up. I fucked up the power button so much that it turned into the reset button. So I had to like hold it down, like to let my Sega know, like I am going to play you indefinitely, and like just hold the button down and then release. Like it just. And there's nothing unique, I guess, as time period goes, but that is something that happened for me. Like I just like held it down and like fucked it up. I love that Sonic. Because back in my day.
Yep. You certainly did like the inferior system.
See, now it's gonna start getting into some physical fighting over here. We ain't gonna shit on no Sega.
Oh, we're gonna shit on
Sega does what Nintendo don't. Like you know.
Yep, it sure does. Sega sure did go out of business.
Isn't it partially owned by Nintendo now?
I'm not sure about. I think it's its own company. But I know that it's not making hardware anymore, and it seems as if they don't mind being Nintendo's bitch.
Hey. Gotta go where the money's at.
Yeah. Which is, I think the consumers chose.
Yeah, they did. So, okay, you're back in their day.
Back in my day, I don't have something exactly like that. Although I've got something that's kind of similar. It was, back in my day, I had so few games that... and I know I had a much more abundance of free time that it's not that I physically wore out a game, but I did try literally everything in a game. You know, I would play a specific game so much that I really could say that I knew it inside and out. For one of those was Ocarina of Time. I think I was over every single fucking inch of that game.
Yeah, I can agree with that too.
And that partially it's because of an abundance of games. Yeah, I'm one of those people who has more Steam games than there's time to play them.
And he doesn't beat them while I'm on a crusading mission to destroy all of mine.
And I think that's a great thing that I'm never going to do. And... that sort of thing, just it's not something that I do anymore. I kind of miss really playing the fuck out of a game.
Yeah, I can get that. Like, yeah, the older you get, you kiddos will learn like you just can't play games like you used to. I still try to, but it's still hard. It's just hard. But okay, so. Lesser known games you should probably try.
Jet Force Gemini.
Well, that's one. The whole episode is one. So if you don't try that, or if it's not more your jazz, I'm gonna give one that I would like people to play, and then you can give yours if you want to.
Okay.
And
anytime and Any?
Yeah, anytime, any genre, anything like that. I'm actually gonna go. I'm gonna stick with some old school for this one. This game it's pretty old now, but it's great. If you're into JRPGs, play this motherfucker. Golden Sun.
Oh, Golden Sun is definitely going to be an episode in the future.
Yes.
We're probably going to give away future episodes a fair amount of time, so I don't feel bad about that. But Golden Sun was a treasure.
Yes. Golden Sun is great. You play a bunch of kids that each have elemental powers. It's like the Avatar before the Avatar.
And they had Pokemon that were their summons.
Yeah.
It was think Earthbound and Pokemon.
Not as weird as Earthbound.
Not nearly as weird as Earthbound, but they did have psychic powers,
yes.
Which is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And just like the fucking best pixel art in the goddamn world.
It was pretty.
Like, this is going to come up a lot, but I think that polygons are vastly overrated, and I think that AAA modern...
We love AAA, and if any of the AAA people want to endorse us and give us things, we will gladly put ourselves out on a corner for you.
You done?
Trying to make us money. No, I hate you, Triple S for you.
But what I was saying is that the modern obsession with making realistic looking graphics, what's that fucking word that they use all the time? Lifelike or
I don't know.
Photorealistic.
Photorealism.
God damn, I hate that. Get over it.
Yeah, it's overrated. Why play games if you just want to look at things you can see outside? Like that's my real takeaway from that. Like, it's...
Yeah, why play Nathan Drake if you can just watch Indiana Jones?
And it's better.
It is.
Less brown people die too.
Yeah, that we might talk about that at some point.
Yeah, I keep making jokes about people of a darker skin tone dying in video games. This is a big deal, and we will talk about that. Yeah. Gonna get lots of comments about that.
Oh boy,
sure.
Yeah.
But it needs to be addressed, kiddos.
I mean, you've said more than I have, but when my thoughts start getting out there...
Yeah, and it's going to be really interesting. We may reveal to you our
things about ourselves.
Ourselves that are significant to things such as race and stuff like that. And it will surprise you because the angrier one of us may not be the exact thing you may think. So anyway, where does that leave us? You didn't do yours.
No, I didn't. And I am going to go with an old school game.
All right.
It actually, I can't remember the exact year it came out, but it did come out around the time of Jet Force Gemini, significantly earlier than Golden Sun, from what I remember. A lot of people, and I'm guessing if you're listening to this podcast, you've probably played this game, Fallout 4. Amazingly, that's the fourth game in a series that I'm betting none of you have played the first game of. Go play Fallout 1.
Okay, so... You know what? No. We're going to stop right there because this can go really hard. Needless to say, Pagan he's like me with comics for certain things. Like, if you didn't go to the source material and you didn't work hard to get to where you are, he's going to be a little unappreciative for your contribution towards this this fandom. And we'll explain that. We'll explain it. And don't get me wrong, if you like Fallout 4, live your life, do you, boo-boo. But for real, for people who put in a lot of time and do a lot of commitment for certain things, it can feel like a splash in the face. It doesn't always feel like, oh, this is great, new people are joining our fandom. So...
Oh yeah, we should own up. We're fucking hipsters.
Oh, we are hipsters. We are hipster fanboys, and you will be able... Well, you should be able to tell that by now already. We're doing retro games at the start. So, anyway, thank you for listening. I hope your ears did not bleed from this us in our shitty voices on this podcast.
Sorry again about the slap and the deaf person joke.
And I'm also sorry about the kitties. Actually, I'm not sorry about my damn cats. I got 3 pretty cats. Tato, Tintin, and Luna. And we will probably not bring them up in the podcast a lot unless they bring themselves up.
Oh, they'll be brought up because I'm actually surprised the cats have been this quiet.
Well, it's
they're
middle
fucking
of the
loud.
afternoon, and so they're not really going to be loud until night. They rest up all day to fuck with people when they get home.
Why is it so hot in here, by the way?
I don't. The air is on. Thank you for listening to our podcast. Some assholes have to talk about my inability to keep my own house cool and comfortable. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you for listening.
See you again next episode.
Thank you for playing.